And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, flying weather for Thursday morning. A lot of IFR, that low center coming into the southwest interior here. A lot of IFR ahead of that from northeast Bristol Bay right up across the Kuskokwim Valley, in across the Mananuska-Susitna Valley, and northward here from the Kobuk Valley, eastward to the Yukon Flats, and northward there to the eastern Arctic coast. North of the central eastern Alaska Range, still some VFR here over the 40-mile country. IFR strip there from the Bering Strait down to Nunivak Island, and areas of marginal VFR, or marginal VFR for the Bering Sea with some areas of VFR, and then also some VFR for portions of the Aleutians and the southeast coast, North Gulf Coast IFR. And for the afternoon, moisture pushing mostly off to the east, so look for some improvement here over the central southeast coast. Still pretty good IFR here in the central interior, expanding as you head north there to the Brooks Range and over to the eastern Arctic coast. And back to the western Arctic coast as well, becoming VFR here over the inland areas of the western part of the state down into Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. VFR progressing into Cook Inlet, and marginal VFR here southeast Bering Sea to the Alaska Peninsula, improving for the Pribilofs there with possible VFR. And occasional marginal VFR for the central western Aleutians, really not too bad. And then Friday morning, even better, mostly VFR here for the Aleutians, right on up into Kuskokwim and Yukon Delta areas, Nunivak Island, back to the Pribilofs, marginal VFR, and that extends up to the Seward Peninsula with IFR here a little farther to the east than it was, as you can see, Thursday afternoon. Friday, this kind of advances eastward a little bit there, and northward, keeping the Brooks Range and the IFR as well as the upper Yukon Valley into the North Slope out toward the Arctic coast. IFR here, southern Copper River Basin, mostly in the Coast Range, mountainous areas there down across Yakutat and the Panhandle. And then for the afternoon, again, gradually improving here, but staying marginal VFR for the coast of the Panhandle. IFR over toward the border, down toward Dixon Entrance. Still some IFR possible for Yakutat. Interior, not too bad. Mostly VFR, some marginal VFR over the mountainous terrain. And still holding on to some IFR here for the Brooks Range into the upper Yukon Valley and the North Slope, with better conditions out here over the Bering Sea, especially the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. We'll see VFR right into Kodiak Island, south central Alaska. Passes for tomorrow morning, or for tomorrow, basically through the day. IFR at times for Anatuvik. Adigan, same forecast, IFR forecast there. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, and occasional IFR for rainy, windy. Isabel, marginal VFR. And Mentasta back to IFR, especially on the southern entrance, a little bit better out north. And then Tanita, occasional IFR with Portage, marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels here running 2,000 to 6,000 feet from the North Gulf Coast down toward Dixon Entrance, and 2,000 feet east of Kodiak Island, south of the Aleutians. So going on to icing, again with this moisture pushing eastward. Tomorrow, considerable moderate rime icing, likely, possibly likely, a chance of anyway, from the eastern Arctic coast through the central interior down into northern Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, Kuskokwim Valley. Maybe some along the North Gulf Coast here, as well as the southern southeast coast. And the jet stream, 125 knot west-southwest flow into the northern Panhandle, lighter here over the interior, northwest 60 to 65 knots here at 33,000 feet over the eastern Bering Sea. Really light here out over the southwest Bering and the Aleutians. And at 9,000 feet, northerlies 40 to 50 knots along the west coast, coming around this low center, pulling into the southwest part of the state. Southwesterlies up to 55 knots there, cutting across the southeastern Copper River Basin. Southwest flow right into the Panhandle. 3,000 feet here. Southwesterlies at about, or westerlies, 45 knots. Barren Islands, Kodiak Island, north to northwest, 40 knots out here to the west. And the stronger winds mostly south of the Panhandle there. And not too bad out west. Turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence here for the west coast areas, Seward Peninsula down into the Yukon Delta, as well as Kodiak Island. up into Kamishak Bay, portions of Cook Inlet, and the North Gulf Coast.